A little disclaimer. I, obviously, do not own Star Wars characters, places, or items. These go to their respective owners. I do not pretend that any of this literary material is my own. However, my analysis and dramatic interpretation are my own, making this video fall under the Fair Use YouTube agreements. I am not making any money off of this video or series, nor do I intend to in the future. If there are any concerns, reach out to me in the comment section. With that, enjoy. Hey guys, and welcome back to Plasmatic Productions. My name is Plasmatic, and I have something very different in store for today. As you can see from the title, I will be reading the first chapter of Star Wars: The Cestus Deception to you guys. And then we're going to just talk a bit about it. You can listen to this on the train, on your way home from work, or just to relax in a sunbeam. It's up to you. If you ever find yourself enjoying this video, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Both are free, but help me out a ton. With that out of the way, let me give you all some brief context before we jump into the book. Star Wars: The Cestus Deception was first published in 2004, written by Stephen Barnes. It takes place between episodes 2 and 3 of the Star Wars saga, during the Clone Wars. We follow Obi-Wan Kenobi, a Jedi Knight, as he uncovers a deadly plot that could prove to be his downfall. Spooky, huh? Alright, let's get into it. The book does contain a dramatis personae. However, I feel that it would be redundant to go over all these characters now before we know who they all are, because there are a lot of them. So let's just go right into the first bit. Before the chapter begins, we have an in-world HoloNet news report. So let's just start with that. Volume 531, Number 46, HoloNet News, 13:3.7. Bactoid closes down 5 more plants. Termin Melatorn. In a statement issued to shareholders, Bactoid Armor Workshop confirmed that it will close down 5 more plants in the Inner Rim and colonies as a direct result of Republic regulations that have hindered its battle droid program. Bactoid plants on Foundry, Ord Cestus, Telti, Balmora, and Ord Linthone will close by month's end. An estimated 12.5 million employees will be laid off as a result. Legislation passed by the Senate 8 years ago forced the disbanding of the Trade Federation Security Forces, the largest single consumer of Bactoid's combat automata and vehicles. Further licensing restrictions on the sale of battle droids made the purchase of such hardware prohibitively expensive for most of Bactoid's clientele. Chapter 1. For half a millennium, Coruscant had glittered, a golden-towered centerpiece to the Republic's galactic crown. Its bridges and arched solaria harked back to ages past, when no leader's words seemed too grand, no skyscraper too spectacular, and titanic civic sprawls boldly proclaimed the rational mind's conquest of the cosmos. With the coming of the Clone Wars, some believed such glorious days were past. Whether the news holos spoke of victory or defeat, it was all too easy to imagine flaming ships spiraling to their doom beneath distant skies, the clash of vast armies, the death of uncounted and uncountable dreams. It was almost impossible not to wonder if one day war's ravening maw might not envelop this, the Republic's jeweled locus. This was a time when the word city symbolized not achievement, but vulnerability, not haven, but havoc. But, despite those fears, Coruscant's billions of citizens kept faith and continued about their myriad lives. A flock of hook-beaked thrantsils flew in perfect diamond formation through Coruscant's placid, pale blue sky. For 100,000 years, they had winged south for the winter, and might for yet another. Their flat black eyes had watched civilization force Coruscant's animal life into inexorable retreat. The planet's former masters now scavenged in her Duracrete canyons, their natural habitats replaced with artificial marshes and permacrete forests. This, others argued, was a time of marvels and marvelous beings from 100,000 different worlds. This was a time for optimism, for dreams, and for unbridled ambition. A time of opportunity for those with vision to see. The red and white disk of a 2-passenger Limulus-class transport sliced through Coruscant's cloud mantle. In the morning sun, it glittered like a sliver of silvered ice. Spiral dancing to inaudible music, it had detached its hyperdrive ring in orbit, slipping through wispy clouds to land with a shush, as gentle as a kiss. Its smooth, glassy side rippled. A rectangular outline appeared and then slid up. A tall, bearded man wrapped in a brown robe stepped into the doorway and hopped down, followed by a second, clean-shaven passenger. The bearded man's name was Obi-Wan Kenobi. For more years than he cared to count, Obi-Wan had been one of the most renowned Jedi Knights in the entire Republic. The second, a startlingly intense younger man with fine brown hair, was named Anakin Skywalker. Although not yet a full Jedi Knight, he was already famed as one of the galaxy's most powerful warriors. For 36 hours, the two had juggled flying and navigational duties, using their Jedi skills to hold their needs for sleep and sustenance to a minimum. Obi-Wan was tired, irritable, famished, and felt as if someone had poured sand into his joints. Anakin, he noticed, seemed fresh and ready for action. The recuperative powers of youth, Obi-Wan thought ruefully. Only an emergency directive from Supreme Chancellor Palpatine himself could have summoned the two from their assignment on Coruscant 6. "Well, Master," Anakin said, "I suppose this is where we part company." "I'm not certain what this is about," the older man replied, "but your time will be well spent studying at the temple." Obi-Wan and Anakin continued down the skywalk. Far beneath them, the city streets buzzed with traffic, the walkways and ground-level construction occasionally interrupted by wisps of cloud or stray thrantsils. The web of streets and bridges behind and below them was dazzling, but Obi-Wan noticed the beauty little more than he had the height, the fatigue, or the hunger. At the moment, his mind was occupied by other, more urgent concerns. As if his Padawan could read his thoughts, Anakin spoke. "I hope you're not still annoyed with me, Master." There it was. Another reference to Anakin's rash actions on Coruscant 6. Coruscant 6 was a colony planet at the edge of the Kron Drift, currently unaffiliated with either Republic or Confederacy. Elite separatist infiltration agents had set up a training camp on Coruscant, their exercises playing havoc with the settlers. The most delicate aspect of the counter-operation was repelling those agents without ever letting the colonists know that outsiders had assisted them. Tricky. Dangerous. "No," Obi-Wan said. "We contained the situation. My approach is more measured. But you displayed your usual initiative. You weren't disobeying a direct order, so we'll mark it down to creative problem-solving and leave it at that." Anakin breathed a sigh of relief. Powerful bonds of love and mutual respect connected the two men, but in times past, Anakin's impulsiveness had tested those bonds sorely. Still, there was little doubt that the Padawan would receive Obi-Wan's highest recommendations. Years of observation had forced Obi-Wan to grant that Anakin's seeming impetuosity was, in fact, a deep and profound understanding of superior skills. "You were right," Anakin said, as if Obi-Wan's mild answer gave him permission to admit his own errors. "Those mountains were impassable. Confederacy reinforcements would have bogged down in the ice storm, but I couldn't take the chance. There were too many lives at stake." "It takes maturity to admit an error," Obi-Wan said. "I think we can keep these thoughts between us. My report will reflect admiration for your initiative." The two comrades faced, and gripped each other's forearms. Obi-Wan had no children, and likely never would. But the unity of Padawan and Master was as deep as any parent-child bond, and in some ways deeper still. "Good luck," Anakin said. "Give my regards to Chancellor Palpatine." A hovercar slid in next to the walkway, and Anakin hopped aboard, disappearing into the sky traffic without a backward glance. Obi-Wan shook his head. The boy would be fine. Had to be fine. If a Jedi as gifted as Anakin could not rise above youthful hubris, what hope was there for the rest of them? But meanwhile, there was a more immediate matter to consider. Why exactly had he been called back to Coruscant? Certainly it must be an emergency. But what kind of emergency? The appointed meeting place was the T'Chuk Sporting Arena, a tiered shell with seating for 500,000 thronging spectators. Here, Chinbred, Coruscant's most popular spectator sport, was played before hundreds of thousands of cheering fans. Today, however, no expert Chinbretier leapt in graceful arcs across the sand. No pikers vaulted about returning serves. No cerulean-vested goalkeepers veered like mad demicots, hoisting their team's torch aloft. Today, the vast stadium was empty, cleared and sequestered, hosting a very different sort of gathering. As he emerged from the echoing length of pedestrian tunnel, Obi-Wan scanned the tiered stands. Most of the rows were as empty as a Tatooine desertscape, but a few dozen witnesses were gathered in the box seat section. He recognized a scattering of high-level elected officials, some important but ordinarily reclusive bureaucrats, a few people from the technical branches, and even some clone troopers. Instinct and experience suggested that this was a war council. Over time, the Clone Wars' initial chaos had settled into a tidal rhythm. Loyalties declared, alliances formed. The galaxy was too vast for war to touch all its myriad shores, but at any given time, battles raged on 100 different worlds. While that number represented an insignificant fraction of the billions of star systems swirling about the galaxy, due to long-standing alliances and partnerships, what happened to millions of living beings had the potential to affect trillions. Already, kingdoms, nations, and families had been ravaged by the wars. As the numbers grew and weapons inevitably became more and more powerful, devastation might well spiral out of control, offsetting the countless eons of struggle that had finally birthed a galaxy-wide union. The labor of 1,000 generations vanished? Never. Lines had been drawn, separatists on one side, and the Republic on the other. For Obi-Wan, as well as many others, that line was drawn with his own life's blood. The Republic would stand, or Obi-Wan and every Jedi who had ever strode the Temple's halls would fall. It was a simple equation, and in simplicity, there was both clarity and strength. So despite the chapter being only 7 pages, there is a lot in here. First, we have our description of Coruscant, which is a planet that I love from the Star Wars movies and shows. Barnes goes into the history of the planet just by describing its physical appearance when he talks about the bird-like creatures that watched the one-screen planet slowly become this sprawling metropolis without a single patch of grass. As we'll see throughout this book, Barnes uses nature as a force of good and technology as its antithesis, which could be implying something about Coruscant and its inhabitants, particularly the Senate's true nature. In this chapter, we are also introduced to Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi's relationship. As we Star Wars fans know, their relationship is halfway between father and brother. While Anakin is not a major character in this novel, Barnes still makes sure to properly characterize him at this stage in his life. Anakin is portrayed as reckless, but subservient to Obi-Wan. Anakin still craves his master's approval at this point in his life. And then finally, Barnes introduces us to just a little sliver of Clone Wars context for those who aren't familiar with the conflict. He describes it from Obi-Wan's perspective, still black and white with clearly defined lines. Obi-Wan sees it as eat or be eaten. We will have to see how that plays out. Barnes also talks about how the whole battle is so small on the grand scale of the cosmos, but yet how even these little battles can affect everyone everywhere, which I think can be applied to many situations in our life. Now we're going to go over some vocabulary from this chapter that you may have found difficult. If you didn't, good for you. I'm going to go through these words anyway. So the first one is solaria, which is a plural of solarium, or a room fitted with extensive areas of glass to admit sunlight. I didn't know about that one, so this is cool. Next, we have ravening, or ravening, because it comes from raven, right? So, of a ferocious wild animal, extremely hungry and hunting for prey. Okay? 3, inexorable, which is impossible to stop or prevent. Impetuosity, the noun of acting or done quickly and without thought or care. And then finally, thronging, of a crowd, to fill or be present in a place or area, or flock or be present in great numbers. Alright, that's all for today's episode. Please tell me if you have any suggestions for formatting or content. I strive to improve. Have a lovely day, folks.